Hello, it's Martin again from New Leaf International. Just going to talk to you on this short video about meetings and how to see them as a system as opposed to a task. There are very many meetings in organisations. Some are very good, many are average, and unfortunately some don't fulfil the requirements of achieving anything. So let's just talk about them as a system. So there are a series of components that we might be very familiar with. So a meeting should have a purpose. And in general, the purpose questions, why are people in the room? And I sometimes wonder if we all do this. You know, we have regular meetings, we go to them, we wonder why we're there, we're wondering what we're trying to achieve. They become a talking shop. Are they for communication? Are they for action? Sometimes we're just not clear. Meetings should have objectives, which are basically outcomes. What are we trying to get out of this meeting? And anyone that knows me, I keep repeating the point. So by the end of the meeting, we will achieve, and those are the objectives, those outcomes. And we should have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, no more. Certainly not 10. Because the meeting becomes unwieldy, it's not focused enough. And if there's 10 objectives to a meeting, then I suggest perhaps it would be better if you had 3 meetings with perhaps different people in there. And of course, every meeting should have agenda items. I've seen people start with agenda items and then question, hang on a minute, what's the purpose of the meeting? So you must, 1, have the purpose, 2, have the objectives, and then 3, you can then put the agenda items together. The agenda items are how are we going to achieve those outcomes. So again, I can't see that you can write an agenda unless you know clearly what the objectives are. And you can't write good, pointed objectives if you don't know what the purpose is. Then, when you know the purpose, objectives, agenda, you can then work out who should be there. And it's people that can contribute to those outputs. I've been to meetings again where there are many people there and some of them wonder why they're there, and they tell me that they're there just in case there's something about what they know might be important. Well, with a well-designed purpose, objectives, agenda, it's clear who should be there and who shouldn't be there. And likewise, what's the appropriate data that's required, information, measures, graphs, general information. What preparation do attendees need to have? What preparation should the leader have? And every meeting should have somebody that is identified as the leader. And that leader keeps the meeting on track with the purpose, objectives, and agenda points, what we typically call POA. And finally, the schedule. So the schedule is basically when it's going to be and how long it should be. And just bear in mind that anything over 40 to 60 minutes with people sat in a room listening to somebody else, that ought to be the maximum amount of time before there's other activity in that meeting, or that meeting should be short, sharp and snappy enough to finish within the hour. So bear with this in mind. We can then look at all those individual components as a system. So let me just have a look at this diagram here and see if I can put those components into the system and explain the rationale to see it as a system itself. So first of all, here's a closed system that engineers will know about, and I'm using it in the context of a meeting itself. So first of all, if we know what the purpose is, the reason why we're having the meeting, the reason why people in the room, that becomes the controlling factor. So as the meeting progresses, there's a check against, are we keeping to the purpose? and then we adjust the inputs. So there's inputs into the system, there's outputs, and there's the controlling loop. And that controlling loop needs to be managed by the leader. So we've got a purpose. Now we've got objectives or outcomes. So obviously, as we design in the meeting, these are the objectives. So we know what should be coming out of the meeting. And what's an input? Well, it's the other stuff. The agenda, which we talked about, the attendees, the data, those other items. So if we see it as a closed system, what we're actually doing here is we're using the agenda items to run the process of the meeting to obtain 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 outcomes. So the leader uses the design of what are the objectives, what's the purpose, and the leader's role is to keep checking in the meeting, either quietly or questioning the whole process. Where are we with this? Are we going towards these objectives? And if that's not the case, and we can see something drifting off, which unfortunately happens, unintended outcomes, the leader should control through what's known in systems terminology as a comparator, and then the way to control the meeting is to adjust the inputs. So if the attendees are going off track, if the data's inappropriate, if there's an agenda item that needs to be adjusted, that's the way to maintain the control of the meeting. And during the course of the hour or 45 minutes, the leader is continually seeing that loop to produce the outputs, the objectives that have been designed. So if you see meetings as a system, you see them as something completely different that can be controlled, managed, and be much more effective than many meetings that we may have attended in the past. Thank you very much.